Okay, Alita Hall,
Here.
Amy Anzalone,
Here.
Dr. Dixon, not here yet. Dave D'Agostino's not here. Christine Kennedy,
Here.
Kimberly Shockley.
Here.
Don Cowart.
Here.
I'm here. Mr. Lucian's on here. Mr. Sands.
Here.
Miss Patno, sorry. John Price.
Here.
And Wesley Lee Resto.
Oh, I'm here.
In the flesh. So we have approval of minutes. Did we distribute any?
No, I didn't. I'm not doing the minutes tonight. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Fine by
We're
me.
gonna go right to,
No minutes, finance work session.
That's part of the culture.
I know, right. Yeah.
Are you over?
That's what we're doing right now. Yeah, I'm not choking halfway. So we're right down to the finance work session, which was the original, one of the big items, obviously, for the meeting today. We had sent out an email on Monday to try to get some feedback from the town side. There were a lot of things going back and forth. I apologize, I wasn't here present at the last meeting, but I listened to a good portion of it, from rolling around where I was. And, it was a big point of finally trying to get the parties together in this room to kind of work through where the numbers really were. And so we got those questions out. We got some responses back earlier today. So I don't know how you guys want to run this. Do we want to start with questions from the committee based on the responses that were received? Or Lisa, you handed out a spreadsheet. Is that something that you wanted to kind of dive in and present?
I think you all should ask me any questions you have for me. I think that might be the best start. The template that I gave you is basically what was out there before. I prefer if anyone has any kind of modifications they would like to have, write it up, just send it to me or give it to Ben, and we can run that analysis. All right?
You mean modifications to this sheet? Because there's been a
Right.
request to get the Excel file so that they can see
Yeah.
cells and
So
formulas.
we'll do them in-house. So if you have anything you want changed, we can do that.
so we're still, I mean, just, we're still trying to pursue that. Lisa, I have a question for you. I don't want to start, but, can you do this with including the maintenance requirement? Because I think it's important to see what the maintenance requirement would be totally after 25 years. Because I think I
Do you
did
want
it,
me to break it out?
well, just by year, because I think that's important that,
It
we're
is.
talking about the bond, but the fact of the matter is, without the bond, I think it's in the 90 million some odd dollars, but I'd rather you put it together because I've kind of looked at it. It starts at the 2.5 or 2.4 million, but it's in the 4 millions by the time we get to year 25.
Yeah.
So I think that's important for people to recognize that if the bond doesn't go, there's still going to be a commitment over these 25 years of
Right.
90 some odd million dollars that's going to have to be fund the maintenance requirement.
So currently your maintenance requirement is already included in the appropriation, but we can break that out.
Yeah, I think what he means is, like, this is how much we're spending on the bonds each year, this is what our maintenance requirements have
Correct.
been based on what you put.
We can break that up.
Correct, because I think it's going to be, we're going to see that without the bond, it's going to be 90 some odd million dollars. And again, that's why I'd like you to do it. It'll be 90 some odd million dollars that is going to have to be funded to put into our current situation. And I think that's important because that's something I think I tried to bring up in our smaller meeting, but because that's a major part of this equation.
So it's, like I said, it's in your appropriation. We can break it out so you can separately see it.
When you say it's in our appropriation,
So this appropriation number that is historically in here, for,
I don't think it is, though. I think that's what
well,
you're
it is because so the first three, everyone can see the first three rows that are blue,
Mhm.
right? So first three rows are your history. Those are your actuals, 18, 19,
Right, but-
20, and 21.
But we haven't, but you're assuming that percentage has been built in our appropriation. I'm saying it is.
So budget can only be the budget, so I can see pulling it out so that we can see this much of our budget has to go to maintenance this year, no matter what. But the fact is, we only know what your budget may be.
But what I'm saying is we may not be able to fund that, and it's going to be taken from the town. That's the point I'm making. I think there was an assumption set at one meeting that with that amount, we should be able to meet the maintenance requirement.
So
I disagree, and that's all I'm saying is I think to have that on the spreadsheet, then we can have a real good conversation about it, because to think that, okay, the school department's just gonna have to meet this, you know, in 25 years, $4 million, but how? Right? I mean, that's a part where we've presented a plan that includes the maintenance piece as part of this bond. So I think it's just another conversation we need to have, but I'd like to see the numbers first. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's part of the conversation as well.
So I know what your end result of what you want to see. And I understand your concept.
Mhm.
So you're saying, so you're saying because of the maintenance, so let's say 2.5 million for next year, which is it's about right,
The next,
would more or less cover the net deficit from the expenditures, the increase in interest and housing aid too. And so I know what you're trying to say. If we don't get the bond, we're still paying the maintenance.
correct.
You understand that?
But it's, yeah,
And what I'm saying is,
but I'd like to see that, Lisa, instead of just
Yeah, we
talking
can bring
about
it
it.
up.
I think,
I
so
think-
first steps would, if you put it together, that would be great.
I think,
Could I
I
ask-
have a moment to moment.
I think what she had a question. She had a question.
So just so you know, my background's not in finance. So this, are you Sarah? No.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. You look like Sarah. Oh, hi. Sorry. I thought you were Sarah.
So the 2.5 maintenance, are we, like, this spreadsheet is saying, like, we're covering that every year, but I guess I'm confused, right? 'Cause we didn't actually meet that maintenance requirement, right?
So, but by law, you're supposed to, right?
But
So
it's
this was the first year that they didn't. So, but it.
No, the first year we didn't was the first year it came out, right? So I think
who was
that, 19, it was 20 we didn't make it. Second
Okay,
year.
that's the year, that's the year I understand because it's the first year I'm exposed to.
Yeah.
Right.
The maintenance has to kind of be pulled out.
Right, but I'm just saying, in our budget, we've talked about,
This much money has to be.
So,
So the idea is that the school has to set aside a certain amount of money, determined by a formula for maintenance. If it does not do that, then the town loses money.
Right.
Okay, housing aid. Now, if what they're saying is that, they're not gonna be able to meet maintenance, they're assuming that for the next 25 years, their budget will never be able to meet maintenance of effort requirements.
And you agree with that?
not maintenance of effort, it's maintenance of
Maintenance of
funds.
effort requirements. So that means that what they're saying is that if it has a bond, the amount of money that is being paid for interest will count as far as the state is concerned toward the school's maintenance of effort.
That part of it, I understand.
Okay.
Just wondering where we were getting money to pay it. Don't.
so
Comes out of the
from the
budget.
appropriation,
They can afford
a
it.
typical budget that has been budgeted for the school department, and it within that school appropriation was an amount allotted for maintenance. They have not, from FY 2020, fully met that by 439, but then later on picked it up and made it. So what Mr. Levis wants is in this appropriation column that you can see the school at the top, these yellow, these are just percentages. If you took that percentage, 3%, it's a 3% all the way down. Anyone can do that math. The first 4 columns are rows of blue are the actuals. Within those columns, within those numbers, if you go back to the school budget, there's maintenance in there, but they don't break it up. Okay. So what Mr. Levis is saying, if we can't make the maintenance, if this, you correct me if I'm wrong, with this appropriation going at 3% or 3.3, this one is at 3, which we probably have to change to 3.3 because you're doing that now. You will not be able to make the maintenance. Is that your?
So no, I'm saying, I'm trying to keep it simple. I want to show this committee,
I think
and
we're going to be this spreadsheet right now with the amount of time we have with, I see what you're saying.
that's all I want. I don't want to get into the
I think
conversation
question
tonight.
is, to throw out the overall, what's the value
I know
of
what you're
this?
Right, and I haven't said we're not going to meet, because we're going to try to meet it every year. We haven't, but I just want to, that's all. If you could do the
I know what you
spreadsheet,
want.
I'd appreciate that.
I know what you want.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Next question? Does anyone have a question about the question?
John, did you have a question? I think I didn't wanna, but my only question is, I just wanna make sure that we know that when when they're talking about maintenance, this is not janitors and stuff like that. Okay. This is, it has to be, capital infrastructure.
I understand the definition. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to.
I'm wondering, there's an important typo, and I don't know if you look at these, but number 4 under bond financing. It says, the county agrees the one-time 3.45 levy is sufficient to cover the bond payment. It says the one-time levy of 3.45 would yet be insufficient. So I don't know if you didn't need to put the word yet, or if you're gonna, if you double
It would not,
negative
it would, so you just
so it
saying
would
it's not,
be sufficient, or it would not be?
would not. Would not be sufficient or insufficient, which is the way
Okay.
you want to word it.
Because, okay,
So if you
because that's not what he wrote,
What
so.
percentage would cover the bond cost? So I gave those sheets to the town council, last time, I did bring those, do you know that? When it would break even. Yeah, no, it's like this, I gave you all one.
So, and while she's looking at that, so here, in these early years for 23 and 24, 22 are currently in, 29 is what it is. I had asked you to put 4% into 2023.
Yep.
Were you ever able to put a spreadsheet together with that?
So,
Because I don't know why we're not starting to pay for the bonds and putting it into
Yeah, right away.
general obligation fund
so,
earlier.
I mean, and it's totally, that's a scenario you could do, and what we suggested with the, what we suggested with, if you wanted to do that, I think that was at that last meeting, is that in the excess, yeah, that's probably, so the excess, no, it's the sheet this size. The excess would have to be allotted by the town council to be put in as a reserve. So when we do our budget, let's say you want to do our budget next year at 2023, clearly what this sheet as it is right now is to show you that we only have to have a 1.99 levy to break even. If they go higher, any excess, they could effectively put it in, it's budgeted as an expense, as a reserve for school building. So if you wanted to bump that up to 4%, I think I'm pretty sure I gave that to the town council. I'm sorry I didn't bring it, but it would have given you about a $1 million surplus. And then you could push that into what they call a CIP reserve. Okay. So, and that would be a normal, it's not an unusual thing that a town budgets for reserves for capital expenditures for a future event, but it would get passed by, we need to get it passed by the town council,
Like,
and the
by
vote.
the town council is approved by the voters. But it could be part of our regular annual.
And that could be part of one of your assumptions. If you, here's what my thought process of what you're stating. Do you want 4% for 23, 24, 20?
I want the 2% to continue to go to that general,
So,
so 1.99.
Reserve fund for the bond, yeah.
I would like 2.01% to be going to the reserve fund every year until it's actually paying the bond. Be 1.99%. No, 1.99 is our budget.
But Kim, on that, what you could do is, if you have the bond going out, and you have the interest, you could actually use that excess to pay the actual interest on that bond. So you wouldn't have to pull it down on year 3. You could just be paying off the interest. I mean, it's the same thing,
Well,
and it makes it more
No.
viable instead of putting it
Putting
into.
it in that fund to pay the bond is
it's not the same thing. You can't effectively do it that way. You have to budget for those reserves. So if Ms. Kimberly wants to do 4% and then 2% for, plus another 2% for
the town needs its budget.
So, but here's the thing. Okay, so you say that. So now we're at 4, which is a cap. Okay. So the town typically has 3%, and right now the school is 3.3. So that's, how is that going to make? We only have 2% left to work with. You understand what I'm saying?
I totally understand.
So this is where we're at. You tell me.
Which brings me to things at the end where we asked about this levy being drafted.
And I talked to the chief of municipal finance. Okay. Well, him and her staff, the staff, particularly her, but he was on the email. You cannot levy a separate levy for a bond and for one point in time or for the future. And it's a total levy. How we break it out is how we break it out. If we want to break it out 2-2, yeah, but you can't do 199 for the school and 2% for the town, and then think you're going to have 199 for the next 10 years.
Well, it's part of our annual budget now,
Yeah.
that 1.99.
Well, and that's what I tried to, and I'm glad you brought that up, because Mr. Lucas mentioned that, and I'm trying to explain to him that everyone can look on this sheet. It is, if it was in the base, I would agree with you, but unfortunately, it's not into the base until you get to if you guys look at 2026, I gotta use this. Year 2026 is when the actual interest for the bond kicks in, and that's $6.7 million. So it's not in our first base. Even if you wanted to do the 4% in the first year, which is 2024, when the construction's going on, okay? Unfortunately, if that number was in our base, we could probably maneuver a little bit better.
But
it's not.
if you levy in 23 for the 1.99, it's in your base when you get.
But what I'm telling you is it's not, because your highest base, okay, if we can all say that, let's just say our interest payment, our top interest and principal payment for this bond is $6.7 million, which happens in 2026.
Which line are you on? This one?
Yeah, it's the big one, but it's line year 2026. If we go all the way across and you see the total debt is 10 million, it's the year that it first gets to 10 million. So this year right here, see that?
Yeah, but I think,
So this number, I think that's where there's confusion about it's in the base. If that was our first number, it would be in our base, but our base, it doesn't come into our base until 3 years later, and that's why it's hard to jump it to pay for it, because you're going to have to do 4, 3, and 3, and we're going to still be in a tough spot, because our peak is at 6.7, and we don't drop until old debt until 2028 is we drop our debt $1 million, but we pick up the peak 2 years earlier. So it's a tough swing.
So I guess where I get confused is without doing the $1 million in the reserve account, we go to our largest negative is 1.473. And this is an annual deficit, like 1.4 the next year.
And then, yeah,
We're not being that we're paying just extra money beyond what we have.
Because you're now down to 81.
And this is a little bit,
Yeah, have one conversation at once.
so, and another caveat with these assumptions is the school appropriation at 3%. I think we can all agree here, the school personnel, that 3% is not gonna work. It's gonna need to be more 3.3, am I right?
I don't know, I mean, so we're doing, I don't want to get into school versus town, but we're using our ESSER fund. And if you've watched our meetings or participate, we're trying to make decisions now that will allow us to free up operations, such as Chromebooks. We're trying to reduce out-of-district transportation. So I don't know, I can't answer that.
Well, the ESSER funds they're only COVID funds utilized for once in a lifetime.
Correct, but Lisa, exactly, but we've like purchased Chromebooks that were gonna be leased over 3 years, so it saved us about $400 and some odd thousand over the next few years. So we're looking at,
I understand.
no, I don't know if you understand, I mean,
No, I do,
all right, so then,
I do very much
we-
know about the ESSER funds.
no, I know, because you called right, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that I don't know if you understand how we're using them strategically to try to free up, because we understand we're gonna be in tight budget situations, right? So that's what we're trying to do. So to say that we're automatically gonna need 3.3, I can't answer that right now.
Okay, well,
That's
so,
all.
I mean, I don't know who to ask if the school department doesn't know what their appropriations for this analysis is, if it's not 3, if it's not 3.3.
but I don't have a crystal ball of 20 years. Maybe we will, but I'm saying is that we're trying to work hard to reduce. We're looking at, a virtual net metering. That's all I'm saying is that
Yeah.
we're working hard to try to reduce because we understand how important this bond is.
I think what I'm seeing here is that, there is the suggestion of the 1.99% tax levy.
Mhm.
And that, since we can only go to 4%.
Right.
That means that if we go for 1.99 and put that in a reserve fund to help pay for the bond,
Mhm.
we only have available to us another 2.01%,
Mhm.
which has to be in some way split between the town and the school, because the most you could get is a 4% tax increase if the voters approve it.
So the majority of that should be sent to the schools,
Well,
because the town council has failed to support the schools year after year after.
well, we're not, it doesn't mean
Because
that
the town doesn't have money, doesn't need the money.
Oh, listen,
we're not,
this town council totally supports the municipal side.
excuse me, right now, that's a decision that will be made, I understand that, but what I'm saying is total tax rate or the tax levy can only be 4%.
That's fine,
And
but
if
you bought the trucks for the municipal.
If
So
there's
that,
one
it's a
nine,
one-time
if
purchase.
there's 199, put
I
aside,
understand
for the
what you're saying.
reserve, it
You don't
only
have
means
to,
that the
there's 2% left.
2%
The
left.
majority of that should go to the schools. They have been sidelined for so many years. I've been here 33 years and I've watched it.
So, sir, even if, let's say your assumption is right, 2% is not gonna be enough for the school.
2% is going to allow them to correct situations. Understand, he said, first of all, well, second, I told you again, things, I think you're wonderful. You're a great finance director. I can only imagine the mess that you stepped into, and you're doing a wonderful job with it. I bet you're still finding little functions in there that you have to go back in and repair. You're doing a wonderful job. Now, here's the problem. You're not only the municipal finance director, you're also the town finance director. Before you is the most qualified committee I've ever been on. I'm the least qualified, most fully. So, our biggest problem in this town is the middle school. We have kids walking through water, we have mold, we have bacteria, viruses. We need to fix that problem.
I don't disagree with you. I actually did the tour. I am 100% in agreement that we need to school. That's not, both
Okay.
Ben and I are on agreement that, school is 100% needed.
Okay, so,
I just don't feel that we have the financial means to do it. It needs to be smaller. The dollars need to be smaller. It's going to put us in a very tough situation.
absolutely.
Most importantly, because we get the taxpayers have to vote on our budget every year, correct? So let's just say we have 1 year that they don't vote and they level fund us. How do you think that? I think we can all say, the people that here are employees of the town, that it was a tough year, the prior year being level funded. Can you imagine now with an additional debt when this big one comes in at 6.7 and we've been level funded for the last 2 years? How do you think we're gonna do it? How are we gonna do it? We have to pay electric, we have to plow the roads, we have to fund the schools. You tell me, how is that gonna be done if the taxpayers, I'm just saying, hear me out, if they say no and level fund, we do 4%, we get a 4% bond, everything gets passed, next year they level fund us for 3 years in a row. What is your solution?
It reminds me of the time Selma elevator. Right, wanted to buy a the portals about.
What is it? It's number 7.
Is there, in your mind, looking at the numbers, is there a year that you feel like at some point it becomes responsible? I mean, the school's gonna get worse.
Right.
So if it's not now, you're gonna spend more, the money's not going anywhere, the inflation is gonna be there, so it's, somewhere along the line. Is there, in any of your projections, have you looked to be able to say, this isn't the time, maybe this is the year, this is the time, this is the debt? Has there been any kind of,
So I was
to try to
told,
figure out when you feel
Right.
it could be responsible?
so both Ben and myself have asked be now? Does this have to be, can it be smaller? And we got, no, this is.
We're gonna lose 15%
This is-
extra reimbursement.
Here's the thought process on that. Okay? You know, you can say we're gonna lose 15%, but you don't know if there's not gonna be another bond by the state that they put out. It's the worst case scenario, let's say they do. I mean,
But we also don't know if they're gonna level fund
but
15.
that's like me going into,
There's on one hypothetical, but
but that's like me going into a store and buying $1,000 main toe, and I only can afford 150 of it.
Right, that's me saying.
Well,
I'm
because
not
it's
gonna
on
return
sale
my
and it's normally 5,000, I mean,
You can't bring luxury purchase into it, but let's say the town wasn't, we created our budget in a different way. Would you feel like that would be something to happen for? We're doing what if, so I'm willing to just go one.
so here's the thing. If you do the full 80, we have $10 million of credit left. That's for a long time, and I don't know, if you look at this analysis of when the principal drops off, it's a good 10 years before we have free up any more debt.
Yep,
Okay?
I do
So-
understand that, but that's a different argument.
It's the high
I just
school
want to
getting.
stay with our current argument. Like, if this project could go forward and we didn't have to worry about budget approval by the voters, would this be a feasible? Instead of what?
It's still very expensive. I mean, you were at the strategic meeting.
What?
You saw all the needs by all the departments, a couple departments that have been totally neglected for years.
100%.
Okay. So that's a town,
I'm just saying, I want to know
I'm explaining it to you.
about this project.
I'm explaining it to you right now. That is a town council decision on what your priorities. If you want to spend 80 million on this, and you want to forego all these other, that is your
We're
vote.
not spending it, we're spending 40,
67. So
I'm not
you
saying,
get 50% back.
but 67 million is the ultimate tax bill to the town.
Okay, fine, but we're not spending 80.
Yeah, well, but you're spending 95,000 on,
95 million.
95 million on maintenance.
So,
In these old buildings that are gonna,
yeah, and I'll put the maintenance in
apart.
there, and so it'll help your argument, okay? And from my perspective, just strictly a finance person, okay, we're $140 million negative net. We're gonna use all our credit, okay? And we have all these other needs. If that's the town, if that's the route, it will be tight. Even if we didn't have to have the voters' approval, oh yeah, there'd be less of a risk, but you gotta understand, these taxpayers are gonna have bare minimum have 2% decrease. If that's a town council decision, that's not
totally,
mine.
I would 100% agree.
If I was in your
That's why I just want
position-
the feasibility.
If that was my personal decision, I would max out. I'm just looking at it like that.
I definitely
And I
agree with you.
And I walked through that school and I said, oh gosh, this is terrible. I just wish it was 20 million less. It's 80 million. That's a lot. The median income for this town is 65,000. The median income for, yes, it is.
I was impressed that it's based on,
Well,
an income of like $95,000.
Okay, I just Googled it, okay, but, well, for argument's sake,
always believe
this
what
is
you
a
read.
middle income community. Barrington's median income is 125,000. And they built a school of was it 83 million? And we're almost half, a little more than half of their median income. You will put a strain on the
They
taxpayer.
finished like.
And it's twice the
build
size.
less money to build cheaper bridges because of.
And then, no, I'd like to sort of bring this, I just sort of, I know that you're saying like, okay, I'd like to see it 20 million less. So if that's the case, are you saying that you would dissuade $20 million worth of projects until that debt fell off? Because if not, then you'd be putting yourself right back in the same.
All I'm saying, all I'm saying as a finance director, all I'm saying, if it was $20 million less, I think it would be very digestible.
And then would you dissuade any future projects until that bond?
Well, that's not my
fell
decision.
off?
I don't make those decisions. That's not my decision. I'm making a decision on whether we can afford it. I mean, and I don't make the decision for recommendation.
So would you recommend that they didn't do $20 million worth of projects?
I'm just saying, financially, if it was $60 million, I think it would be, I think, I can speak for myself, it would be, I mean, very doable.
I'll tell you, my goal here is that there is one project presented at the town council meeting, and there is one financial plan. Now, this group already decided that they are supporting the $89 million project, right?
Correct.
That's the project that's going to be presented.
Correct.
So what is the financial plan that's going to be presented? Is it going to be a tax levy of 1.99% and a 4% total tax increase to the taxpayers and they? Is that what you're presenting? And is it going to be a 4% tax increase that you're going to present and feel that needs to be presented to the taxpayers for the next 2 years? So that's a question that you have to think about. Can you go out and get the support from your voters in this community for a 4% tax increase for the next 3 years, of which 2%, 1.99, could be put into a reserve fund to be used to support the bond, and the rest would be used to support operations of both the schools and the town, not worrying about how it's going to be divvied up, okay, at this point in time. That's really the jump start that we have to make. Okay, can you all support that? Is that something that you want to present as a financial plan when you go on November 22nd?
I think we need to review the situation with this. You presented some wonderful information. And the question is, can the school and the town manager, town finance director work diligently to bring the projects up when you say, okay, we have the backup to support that? So that's what I'd like to see.
I don't think it's, but I think, here's the thing, I know, Dr. Dixon, you want one plan. I think we had a meeting last time, and we were adamant about this in the plan. I think the difference is maybe disagreements, and I saw Mr. Murray's comments back and forth, neither Ben or Mr. Marsh and Mr. Murray here, because there's some questions or answers to these questions that, weren't agreed upon, right? So I think it's going to come down to, honestly, can we get the council to put this to the voters? I think that's what it comes down to, Dr. Dixon, is that.
No, I understand.
But I think that comes back down to the board, and to answer your question, I would feel 4% is just ominous, like the number goes out, people don't really equate it, but I think that goes back to the board that we developed, that for the average person and the average home value, that's $26 a month. That's, however, $1, whatever a day, and presenting it with those facts, I'd be very comfortable presenting that to people rather than this, oh, your tax is going to go up by 4% every year.
Well, just keep in mind, I mean, that's the positioning, but the reality is that we're going to need, I would say, 4% increase, of which half of it is going to go toward the school bond.
Right.
And I have always, for every single referendum, I have gone out and done 100% in trying to sell the budget to the taxpayers. It's hard work. It's hard work. And that means that there has to be a sustained effort by everyone who wants this building. I want to support this building. I feel there is a need and I want to support it. But I'm concerned about getting the finances really for at least the first 3 years to get us off the ground. And yes, the state is going to give us reimbursement, but that's going to be spread over 25 years after the project is finished. They're not going to give us a lump sum of money right at the beginning of when the project is done. It's going to be spread over 25 years. So it's going to come in a little bit at a time. So I just want to know how much support is there going to be to help get out there and sell the project and sell the finances that are needed to support the project. And if we don't get,
there's no, right? There's no.
well, I think.
Can I just interrupt a minute? I'm sorry, I have a previous engagement. I'm supposed to be here at 7:30 and I'm running late. So, who do I want to be in charge of giving me the update to what you, Ms. Ann or Kimberly, do you want to give me the changes? Mr. Last week, I already understand the maintenance. I have a question for you.
Yeah, so I would really like for you to sit down with us and tell us where our plan is wrong, where our numbers, where we've gone wrong.
Yeah.
That's what I'd really like to know.
Okay, and I think that when I put the maintenance in there, we can go with that. I will fine tune it and
Can we get this so that we can work with it, with the numbers and everything?
Well, it's a product that I developed, so it's not something that. Yeah. I mean, it will
There's no way
have-
operating.
So,
There's really no reason not to share it.
Yeah, the town,
she has to share it.
I think it's on the town.
I gotta go to
I'm sorry.
I mean, Lisa, I just want to say, that, we're being, you know, like, Dr. Dixon's worked hard, wants us to come up with one, but I feel like there's a lack of effort on the part, like, if you're not willing to collaborate and share with us information, to make us go through an
Well,
after process.
I think that we've
To
been
me,
willing. I just feel, I can change this format. I can, what's your name, sir?
John.
John. I can sit with John and Mr. Harold. If you guys want, and we can sit and crunch the numbers, I have no problem with that, okay? And in a big group, it's kind of hard to do that, right? So, think you go, are you finance?
No, I do a lot of finance in my job, but I'm
Oh,
not.
perfect. So if that sounds adequate, you can sit as a free or as one of the persons I want to come in. It's too many people, we're not gonna be able to change things. I would have brought my computer, but I had too much going on tonight and I'm already going to be 10 minutes late.
Thank you.
If that's okay, I mean, my personal way, if you want to sell this, you're gonna have to do a reserve, in the first few years to hit the CIP reserve. And the town council is gonna have to agree with putting on $1 million to $2 million in reserve. So when you hit the blue payment in 2026, your tax rate doesn't have to be too high. You know what I mean? Because it's a big payment, 6.7 million is big. Yeah. You agree? Agree.
Yeah, so let's see it with that too. And I think it's a great idea for you to get together with Harold and maybe one or two
You go
people from the city.
Formulate a team, whatever.
You want to, will you come to the team meeting? We'll get as many of the team there so we can go through it, the finance team.
Yeah, we'll try to put together a night that we can do that, that's fine.
Yeah. Why don't we
Yeah, we're
just-
doing the day this week.
I would be willing to come out of Fort Knight today or
I
even,
can get out of,
If we could do it for the day, it'd be better.
yeah. And we gotta get it done by the 22nd, so the day being in your work schedule and yours.
Yeah, that's fine.
I can do that.
Okay, so let's,
Call me,
yeah.
up.
I'll call you tomorrow.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Can I ask a question?
Me too, I have one too, Don.
To the finance people, it's not really specific to Lisa, it's just a finance question. So, we keep putting town budget together with the bonding budget and packaging them together as one thing. And I know ultimately it's one pot of mush. But talk about selling it to the community and showing the community that we have a project we want to move forward. When we attach it to our operations budget, I think it becomes very hard to digest what we're doing. So I live in another community, and the other community bonded for this. It was never pitched or presented as part of our operations budget. It was, here's a bond for you to vote on to improve schools in your community. And we voted for the bond. That percentage, I thought, becomes part of the base. It's built into the base, and then it's part of the base year after year. And then the operations budget is what's voted on by the community.
Correct.
Do I not understand that?
That is what I understand.
So nobody
I know, that's why
has
I'm
confirmed that. I would like someone on this, like, the people on this committee who have reached out to confirm that you could have a levy attached to the bond. None of them have come back with
No,
confirmation.
I'm talking about
not a levy attached to the bond. When you go in and vote in April, there are two votes, one for the bond for the schools and one for the budget for the town.
So
No, the
that
budget
has
vote,
not-
the town budget vote is a different.
Yeah.
Different time, it's a different time, or
Yeah.
different time altogether.
We had talked about the bond and the budget for the bond being approved at the same time. It's something that's been going on at these meetings for months. No one has come and said, yes, we can definitively do that. I need someone to, like, she seems to have reached out and gotten confirmation that we can't.
But Kim, we've gotten bonds before, so I don't understand that. We have, it's not like this is the first bond we've ever gone out for, and it's always separate. So I don't understand that.
We're
So
paying
was
for,
it has that?
we're paying for
Yeah.
the police station.
The police
Police
station and the
station.
seniors bond, that was a separate vote.
Every year a budget.
That was-
time
I don't understand that.
But like,
It's-
if they don't pass the budget, then that project can't be funded, even though they voted for it.
And I agree with you on that.
Oh,
I
no,
think
sorry,
you're
What
right.
yeah, the police station and the seniors was a separate, was a
levy too. So they don't have tax levies, just the bond. I
Right.
mean, I've lived here long enough that we've had school bonds, police station, whatever. I don't know how they managed to pay for that. I really don't, except to say you pass a budget that somehow is included in that budget levy.
Well, debt service is
And-
part of
and
the
then
bond.
that
I mean, part of the budget.
Exactly.
Right, and I'm gonna piggyback a little bit on Don's piece too, and I'm just gonna make this very simple because I'm not a finance person either. But everyone keeps trying to sell it as it's 4% this year, 4% next year, 4% next year. Just like Don said, you're combining everything together. But what I don't understand is in year one, when we vote, we say yes, and let's just say it's 4%. If it's $100 budget, you owe $4 more, not that you owe $104, right? It stays $104. Why do I have to pay why do I have to do that next year? Automatically pay 4% again?
I agree. Lisa answered that question this evening. Now, maybe we don't agree with her, but she said that it can be added to the base for the first 3 years.
But why?
Why not?
After the first 3 years, she said, if you vote for it, then it is part of the base.
So I need a better, no,
I don't-
I need a better understanding.
I don't get that.
Never heard that.
Because what
I don't either.
don't.
Because Ann, think about this, that if that's the case, right? So you paid 104 this year, I'm paying 104 this year. So next year, I'm only gonna pay 100 again, and I gotta add another 4% on there, so it's 104 again? I could vote on it again? It doesn't make sense.
I understand what you're saying, but I was listening to what she said, and she said it could not be, I would think it would be on the base. I agree with you, but she said it can't be on the base for the first.
But why though? We don't get the answer though, that's the problem.
And I think she was misunderstanding us, or we were misunderstanding her, because,
She has zero right there.
so, I'm trying to find
Yeah.
on the most contentious spreadsheet in America.
You know what, and I'm like, wait.
No, but, no, we have,
Yeah.
when you have that meeting on bond, then bring it. As of tonight.
I get this $1.5 million, right? 1.99% moved us from 74.2 to 75. So, in my mind, that additional $1.5 million annually put towards, it's in there.
It's in the base, it's already there. It's 1.199, the 1.4, the way we worked it out, was 1.44 would always go to the bonds. And then the housing aid would come in, and then the debt would drop off, and it all works. So it's already in the base, and that's why I don't understand why it takes 3 years to get into the base. If,
So, I have a question for Lisa, because she said, give us a question that we're gonna need to.
I think it would take,
Why isn't the 1.99 in the base of year one?
correct,
Okay, so we got that as a question. Well, that's a question, so.
it's a question, because it's $1.5 million a year that would go directly towards this bond. And then the question becomes, is that enough? A year to go towards this bond?
Right, that's a different question, but
I do wish it wasn't quite so rushed, and we do need this.
if you keep saying to the community though, 4%, you're gonna be paying 4%, 4%, 4% for the next, we're already maxed out, we haven't even done anything, there's absolutely no way.
Well, that's why
It's dead in the water.
That's why I don't like this spreadsheet, even though I see what it does, because it doesn't pull out the bond in the revenue.
That was my initial response, like, you can't put those together, you can't.
Yeah.
I know it seems like you should, because it's the same money, but you can't.
And every year we have to get bond. So you really do want it pulled, because we don't have a choice. Once we get this bond, we don't have a choice. Now, the other questions she asked are good questions.
so the levies here,
Yeah.
and here's
Yeah,
the debt
about
service,
1.5.
okay?
Yeah.
And then that's
But this included debt service falling off,
correct.
and it automatically goes to this. And that's what's concerning, because there are gonna be 6 different town councils between now and the end of this bond. And so factoring in that all debt service reductions are part of how we're gonna pay for this, is hard to do. Because some town councils might say, No.
But
Now,
they're responsible for, just like you are. You
I know.
inherit, just like we inherited.
we
You
still
are
have
still
to pay the
responsible.
debt, and it should always be, this is the debt, and we have to pay
Well,
it.
then you can't go 199, you have to go 3.46.
We do, which also means there's no operations budget increase this year. From what?
Well, no, but to Lisa's point,
No 1 year though.
but to Lisa's point, you can use, you could split the 3.46 over 2 years and put it into the base and still have that, but you're going to decrease the amount of the appropriations that's going to go. We've done that. We've done those calculations before.
According to Ben, the 3.445 won't cut it.
Well, we can show that.
And that is the
It
reason,
explains what is he talking about, that's a
Right.
simple table look up.
I think part of it is that, we have pension liability, free pensions, that costs money. The third year of the teacher's contract, I believe it's going to cost over $1 million, isn't it? Is that correct?
Yeah.
And the third year of the teacher's contract, so I mean, they've got expenses coming up.
No,
They
but
have
he-
expenses coming up, so that's why.
He
I
just
think-
says the 3.4% levy won't be enough to cover,
That covers everything.
which is, you can look at a simple table and pick that number out. That
I think she might have
I
been
don't know what-
interpreting that wrong. I think she was just interpreting it in the worst way, because I don't.
I do too, and that's one reason why it is always hard to have a person who answers questions.
I do remember Mario saying at the joint meeting, when everybody was there, how emphatically, I don't see how you can afford not to do the project.
Well, that's what it boils down to, right? So we can,
No,
we
it's not
can do
work.
this, I've been living this with communities. We can go and we can say, take $20 million off that project. And what it means is that we don't really get the building we need. And then what that means is,
It doesn't-
10 years from now, you're putting on an addition, or
We've
you're,
done that. They've done
or
that.
you're
I will
doing
say-
so.
That we do have to make clear in the presentation to the council, there are other things we could do with this money. There may be other things that come up that we'll think we should have done with this money. We have to make a decision right now if we want to do this. But this project. Also going along with what Ann was saying, we need to have a spreadsheet that shows 1.99 in each year, or whatever,
Whatever the
half
number
of
is.
3.45 in 2 years, because 2 years, as Ann said, we're responsible for getting 2 years worth of budget. Like, if this council, who would vote to put it to the voters, if that's the case, will have to know, we have to put 4% budget forward for at least the next 2 years to make this happen and be able to increase our operations budget at all. Like, still maybe not enough.
If that's actually the case though, because I'm stuck on the fact that I don't see why operations is impacted by a bond.
I agree.
think those are two
So-
separate things.
The only reason it's impacted by a bond dot is if we can't do it as a separate levy unto itself, it impacts what we can get for the rest of operations. You know what I'm
We
saying?
need to get some clarity around
So
that.
that one question, I don't know if I've asked it, once I've asked it.
Who gives us the
dozen
answer,
times.
though? I mean, I'm.
No, but see, there's two things on the table here. One is if the debt falls off and town council is okay with the debt falling off and going to the bond, then it's 199. If we're not clear with that, then it has to go to 346 and it has to go over 2 years. And that's how you fund it. Therefore, that would be so when everybody voted, they would say, yes, we're going to do this because we've already preordained that the debt, we're not going to use debt fall-off. So it has to be 346. So for the next 2 years, we have to put that into the appropriations, into that appropriation. We can't, because the bond doesn't affect the levy of 4%. You can't go over that.
That's my.
From a
I
bond
also think
perspective.
so, But I, once again,
But who gives us that answer in writing? That's all I.
Back to the first question.
That would be
I
Karen.
wrote down here.
Karen,
If
the
we
bond
are
lawyer
reallocating
that
the
the
debt
town
roll-off to this, what's it going to?
And
operations.
Well,
who's operation? So you're gonna borrow
Operations.
money to pay for operations?
right,
We really don't have to
Right.
slow down.
that's,
No, it's
Like, I don't love that.
because you don't have a bond here anymore. So you're.
So you'll have that in appropriations without having to increase the levy. Like, I see.
And the
positive of it.
$1.5 million fall off in debt is actually schools. It's from a school bond.
You're not wrong. I don't disagree with you. I'm just telling you, it's in 2 years. Anne may or may not be on the council at that time. Hillary may or may not be on the council
How's
at
that
that time.
audit going? What?
The,
Performance
performance audit?
You know, when you get
Got it started.
Sorry.
Yeah, how's that going?
It's not on the agenda.
It's gonna be a regional.
The interview started this week.
It started.
Oh, okay.
That's not
Can
good enough.
I set that up for her that I asked and I don't think I heard it answered to? I really want to know with all of this, I mean, I think the question I asked was, well, in your mind, when could we afford to do it? And her answer is, we could do it if we take 20 million, but that wasn't the question. The question is, are you saying, yeah, when could we,
Defer it by a couple of years, can we afford it then?
yeah, like, I don't know that.
Yeah, but
I think, well, in a couple of years, this might be up.
We've already deferred it.
Exactly.
Years and years and years.
The question about debt roll-off, I know that the finance committee, Bruce has recommended using debt roll-off to help finance the bond. That question was asked to them, and it's on page 2, question number 2.
Yeah.
Right, I know, because that it's not possible this year, the town has to reduce the balance budget, the existing debt roll-up does not get segregated from the total expenditure.
So,
That's
So going back to a, if
But that's a completely false response.
Yeah, that's not a good.
That's a
Yeah.
completely false response. You can't say where money is gonna go 4 years from now when you don't have a budget. When you know you're collecting the money but not having to pay the bond anymore. There is no budget for it. You can allocate it whichever way you want to. To say you can't is completely false. You don't have a budget 2 years.
I think it's the same argument though for saying it's hard to allocate money that's gonna come our way in a couple of years.
I agree with hard,
Even though we
but
don't
he's
have
saying we
It's a
can't.
policy decision by the
It's a
council.
policy decision by whoever's sitting at the time.
By the council, right, but I mean, we all deal with that. We all deal with previous leadership and the decisions they've made, and we're held accountable. So it's an easy decision to make. You can't predict the future, just like saying, are we gonna do 3.3? I mean, I'd be lying to say, I mean, I could easily say, yeah, 3.3 or 4%, but it's not an honest answer. An honest answer is, we work hard every year to try to do the best we can with the funds that we have, and so that we understand the burden on the taxpayers.
Because we do
That's the honest-
zero-based budgeting, we build
Yeah,
up.
yeah, so I mean, I don't wanna argue, but this is how we do things, and we also have a sheet, when Sarah was here, we looked at the percentage increase that the schools had received over 12 years versus the town. Now, we understand the town has debt service, but we received like 11 point some odd percent over 12 years. There's many years where we've had less than 1%, or level funded 2 or 3 years back before like 14. So I mean,
If they get the $89 million bond, right, they're gonna say no to everything else.
but I think we have to change our mindset, because if not, I'll be gone. Many people in this table may not be involved in positions. You may have kids in the school, but like our middle school, and I have to be careful what I say, but our middle school isn't going to, somebody's going to come in at some point and shut it down. And I don't wish that, but then what's the town going to do?
We're not gonna get.
But then what are you going to do,
And,
right?
and if they choose only to vote for the bond and not for operational budget, isn't that the right of the town to do?
As a purely,
Correct.
from a taxpayer standpoint, only, I am sick of tax increases for something I can't see. At least if I'm saying yes to an $89 million bond as a taxpayer and I have to pay 4% for 3 years, I'm gonna see something come out of it.
I would like the answer to, we separately levy for this thing, because of the fact that if the parents come out and vote for this bond in March, the seniors are going to come with torches in May to vote down the levy. So,
I don't know if that's true. I went to the senior center,
I'm
60
being devil's
people.
advocate here.
No, but I'm
but-
saying 60 seniors, I expected, Bob Roble, I was with it, I expected them to be against it, right? They all asked questions. I bought all their, right? I mean, full disclosure, I figured I'm asking for 10 minutes of their time. So I bought 60 people lunch. It was only $3 a person, thank God. But they all want to ask me questions. They all said that, like, except for of the people lived in the West Warwick or East Greenwich, there was a few of those, the West Greenwich, they said that they would support it. They appreciated me answering questions, and I was shocked because I know that buses used to be, people were bussed in different things. Their taxes are frozen. They feel that it would be good use. They appreciate the fact that somebody asked them their opinion, right? So, and I know that's only 60 people, but the bottom line is they recognize their taxes are frozen, but they asked great questions. Most of it was concerned about, like, why did we build Washington Oak on a dump? On a, like a dump. And I said, I don't know. I said, I wasn't here then. You know what I mean? I don't know. But
We have to take on that administration's decision.
But I think to make a decision about this based on the fears of the past, I think is ridiculous. I think we have to act our way into thinking differently, right? Instead of just thinking our way, we have to take action. And I think that's what this committee has done.
Can I add to that? So I do think the town needs a win. Like, we need a win, a victory. I think a school can't be a victory. I remember we were at a town council meeting and the solicitor talked about Pontiac really turning the corner and becoming a player in terms of the CTE community when they built a new school. They built a new school and people were like, oh my, look at that big, beautiful school, and people went. So I do think the town needs a win, and I do think it will change perception of people, because when people start seeing their community in a different way, then I think they support the community in a different way. I think what's going on over time is that we keep experiencing loss after loss, and then people just become very disenchanted with everything, and it's just no matter what. No matter what you ask, it's no. Second part is, I want to get more information to this, because looking at through this at the lens of 24 bonds that passed in the state. 24 bonds. I know some have not, but 24 bonds have passed in the state. How is it that we can't figure out how to make it work here when 24 times it happened in other places? And in some places, twice.
Right.
Grayson's done it twice. And we're not loaded in Grayson, trust me.
We don't
Twice.
know any questions.
Was that? We don't.
Vote on your budget.
We don't. But we have good services.
If it
And so I
comes
don't
up on a
complain.
ballot, not voting for your budget sounds prosperous. No, I just think we have to have a proposal that we can get Lisa to sit like this.
I don't know if that's
Yes.
possible.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know if
But
that's possible.
her job isn't to pass the bond.
Right.
Her job is to tell us what we can afford and then what we can't afford, if that's.
She can help work with us. I mean, the answer of no, you can't
Yeah.
have my work product, like, you work for, is the town
She's
respected?
a kinder, I agree with
Yeah,
that.
I think you should give you the.
That was weird. That was weird. It's my
Neither,
first
neither
one.
of us.
And honestly, if-
Okay, so we want to bypass that, neither of us.
Well, no, but Dr. Dixon, that's the trust part here, so that's why I struggle with it.
But right now, we need her to trust you more than you to trust her, because that's where we're selling to her.
Yeah, but what have we done not to earn trust? That's what I'm asking.
That's, I don't think her wishes, she
But
only cares about the
She's
numbers.
also not the one who has to say yes. Like, we need her to share, I don't know, I need you to know what questions to ask and sit there with her.
and that's like how we get, see the questions, we can't see the cells.
Yeah.
And how the cells are.
You know what?
We're not getting this damn spreadsheet in the next week.
I agree that the bring up the spreadsheet with the formulas should be a no-brainer, okay? I agree with that, all right? But I'm not sure completely if seeing the formulas is gonna make any difference, because there are some questions here. One is 1.99% levy to carry us for the first 3 years for the bond, is that sufficient? If we said also, this second question.
Yeah.
Should you use debt service floor loss? Your proposal says yes, the town's proposal says no, debt fall off. Does not that current operating budget use the money
Just to say
in
that.
that debt?
Just to say it.
Sorry, what's the
Yeah.
question? I'm writing it down.
That's correct, let me reword that.
The debt payment is calculated out, correct? Okay. That's been being done for however many years the bond has been around, correct? Okay. Everything else functions with the rest of the money in the pool. So if we take that bond money away, the pool is still functioning as is. So if that money goes to this bond,
Status
that
quo.
money, that budget's still functioning as is. If you need more money there and we have to raise taxes, I understand that. So I don't understand why their answer is a hard no, saying you can't take that money and use it for that.
And I think that's an argument that I know to say,
Yeah, so.
I know that the debt service is part of the overall operating budget being utilized to pay the debt.
Correct.
And once we're not paying the debt, if you simply immediately.
But do you give it back to the taxpayers? Which you have to do.
No, Harold, I'm gonna tell you honestly, no.
No,
We're not
no,
paying
so,
it back to the
Get a check,
taxpayers.
you get a check,
I would imagine my.
Like,
I
I
get a
hope we're
check.
giving it back to them in nominal
Maybe
terms.
that's it.
But I do think that that's an argument that could be made night of. Like, you guys as a council don't have to decide today if this money is being allocated towards this fund. What you have to what we can all understand is though, and in Christine's word is perfect because she's not a finance person, is this pool of money is going to be sitting there until this date. It's having paid this debt.
It's part of
And
the
when that
base.
debt disappears, it can just pay that debt. It's like, I was paying my car payment, I paid it off, and I moved that payment towards.
I
paying
just
off
got
my
another
mortgage.
car, same payment.
Well, and in addition to that, right, she said something to the effect of, yeah, that'll help your case, when Craig kept asking about breaking out the,
Yes, and I
maintenance.
want to see how I agree with that, so I don't
So
actually.
I guess the question is, could we look at it, once we see what that number is, if there a reason, why wouldn't we take whatever we have to put away for maintenance requirements and put that toward the bond right away, because that's in effect. with
Well,
the
no,
bond.
because you don't have that money.
We don't have that money.
allocated
No,
towards
no, but I mean, like, long term.
If the state counts what you're paying for interest as your maintenance, that's what we find, meeting maintenance, that's what we find. That means that we will not lose state aid.
Okay, so that goes.
If we get a bond.
Yeah, but
If- only if we get a bond.
Yeah, but so what my point is, if in theory, you.
Then we have newer buildings and renovated
It's
buildings.
not money that you're putting there, but it's somehow, if you weren't doing this bond, you'd have to account for when you do your budget every year.
Correct, that's the point.
I actually have a question around that you put it down. So she said that it was built into the allocation.
This is what she's saying. She's saying that they give us money, we by law have to meet this. But the part is, the reason that was so towns fund schools for maintenance.
Right, but for it to be built in, Craig, at $2.5 million, this would have had to hit the operating side at some point,
Correct.
and then to build in for the following year.
That's my point.
She made a projection based on our budget, right? How
Same
number
number
of
of minutes.
years, but the 2.5 is not built into that number. She's just thinking we're going to
We have
absorb the
to.
2.5.
Right, exactly.
No, because okay, so if you look at it, if you look at it, it went up 3%.
Yeah, she increased your budget every year.
That means you get a 0.5%.
You basically,
No, you get the, because.
I mean, there's only so much the school can.
No, but I'm just saying, that's the
Yeah.
thought process.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I don't know if it's possible for you to do this, Greg, but I think there should be a way of making sure in the presentation that you're stating, you know, over time, as we're using these interest payments towards maintenance, we're also going to be slowly allocating more of our budget towards capital improvements, because when we get to that place, we don't want to have no money put into the
Correct.
schools.
Right,
Because
right.
That's a concern that council members have is,
Right.
okay, so all the other schools are gonna burn down while we let interest
No,
take care of all of it.
Right.
And
yeah, no, I get it, I get it.
Coming from what
No, I
the
get it.
questions are gonna be.
But that's also a policy decision because previous councils haven't funded, you know what I mean? Like, we know that, we have not put
In the same
capital,
sentence, you can't say we can't look backwards at other, leaders and then be like, but it's their fault.
I'm not saying that, I'm saying is that,
They vote on the budget.
no, but you're telling me this council's concerned, all I'm saying is that they should be stepping back saying, like, we understand how we got here, now we want to change it, right? But you have to at least understand how we got here, you can't just, I feel like sometimes people just don't even want to look, like, we live it. You spend the meetings when you weren't on the council, right? And you've seen the conversation, so I hear what you're saying.
Underfund the entire town.
Exactly. But here's the point. When the town was going for the police department, right, we had our issues. We've had budget issues ever since I've been here. But we weren't saying you don't fund the senior center, you don't fund the police department because we have all these great needs, right?
Right.
And I feel that that's the message that's coming. We understand. I've been to the budget meetings. We understand what went on in Parks and Recs. What we're saying is we need to unite as a community to support the the building of the renovation of schools now, right? We're not saying all those other things aren't important, but to use them as a reason not to move forward is the way that I believe this community has operated. You know, I just feel that, I agree with you, we have to hit those points, and it shouldn't be me. I'm a figurehead, people get angry when I speak, and it should be like, you're so powerful, this group, like when we spoke last week and I heard the passion from people, that's what needs to be to the council. They're gonna shut down with me.
We have the meeting at the end.
No, but I think we need to speak. I don't think Luke should speak, I shouldn't speak. I think it should be, but I mean, like Alita and Christine and John, like you guys are in this field, you have children. I mean, I think your taxpayers, your voice has so much more power, you know? And you know, Amy's been living in the school, her children have gone through the schools, she's been an educator, she's now, you know, central office. I mean, you know, she's experienced everything. Like this is, you know, I mean, Joe is passionate, Joe's mom isn't doing well. So he's, you know, I don't know, he's out, he just texted me again, his mom's really not doing well, so. You know, I think that's what needs to happen next week or the 22nd is the passion from the people in this committee that are taxpayers and you know, citizens and consumers. And, you know, I just feel that, you know, it shouldn't come from me and you know, Luke's done a fantastic job. I think we all agree, but the focus now has become on Luke and it needs to be on the committee as a whole.
What I don't want to see is something like this declaration that has occurred this evening, this disagreement happened on the floor November 22nd. So I think that there's a plan here to try to meet with Lisa, see what could be done with the numbers, et cetera. But I think that this committee needs to say, I think this is just sticking to this plan that Luke put together. I think you need to come to, because it's like 14 different plans. No, it's not really 14 different plans. I think you need to come and you say, the project is 89 million, we're going to get some upfront money from the state, so we're actually going to borrow $80 million. I mean, that's, you know, it's factual. We don't need spreadsheets like this immediately. We need factual. We're recommending a 1.99% tax levy that would be put into a reserve fund so that it can be used to pay for the bond. If the 199 does not pass, we may have to consider 3.45. We're considering, using debt fall-off and what that means and what the impact is. And we have suggested certain bond bans, which are a little bit different than what the town has presented. In other words, there are really only 4 or 5 features of this plan. It's levy, it's bond bans, it's debt fall-off, et cetera. And that's the plan that you're presenting. It doesn't have to be a big spreadsheet, et cetera, at this point in time. And then there can be a discussion about whether the council accepts those features or not.
Yeah, but you know where that goes, right? I mean, you guys are here every day with us. There's other council members that aren't here, and their conversation is gonna go right to them.
Well, one of the people is a CPA, and yes, he's gonna be looking at the numbers. And the council is concerned about, will we be able to afford any other contracts? Okay, and you know, I don't know if you can predict what's going to be able to be done in 10 years from now or 15 years from now. We don't know how much the town is going to grow. We don't know if the comprehensive plan is going to keep pursuing a residential community, which puts a lot of burden on the taxpayers like you and me, or whether it's going to be having a little commercial mix of that, which might relieve some of the tax burden on the taxpayers. We don't know some of those unknowns. We don't know how much the community is going to support us. I think that one of the districts wants somebody to live there. I mean, it's pretty high income compared to the rest of the community, but they both know to everything. It doesn't really have to do with how much you can fund it all the time, what they vote for. Actually,
I'll city budget. They don't necessarily think they
I think people would do.
Well, but you know what the reality is, what we do now, the middle school, like 5 years from now, it's gonna cost more money. When we escalate new buildings, we escalate it 3 to 4% every year, right? So say we don't do this till next year, that's $3.5 million instead of 89. Now you're at 92.5.
No, we understand that.
there any way we could have, them look into, either accelerating some work or pushing some work out to try to reduce that $6 million bump on 2026 down to 5?
Well,
You mean,
Like, put it in
phasing,
earlier years,
phasing of the
or-
construction?
But it's
Yeah,
always
change
gonna
the
bond
thing.
differently.
but if you,
Yeah.
but if you got the 199, as we stated, it's gonna start in 23, then you can pay off that interest that is coming in. Why can't you pay off the interest? So you don't have a big amount right there.
And I would say why, what you're saying makes perfect sense. And I need you to kind of work on the same page. But keep in mind, Lisa will be asked questions, probably by the council members. But often isn't as actively speaking. But I will say, you mentioned doing that, and she thought it wasn't plausible. So maybe in a
Because
smaller
she
group
says it
setting.
doesn't start until 26.
Yeah.
So if she's saying it doesn't start until 26, but we have it reserved there, why aren't you paying the interest off?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand that myself. When you said that, it made perfect sense. I don't do cash from that.
Well, these are the little things I don't understand about municipal. Why can't you do that? I mean, is there something against that?
Right.
If it's already in the levy?
So I think that's where our homework has to be, and Ann says, and I think she said it well, here's the 5 components or the tenets of our plan, with all the backup information we need for those 5 things.
Yeah.
Call whoever we need to call, get the backup information, so when it comes time to present it, we can say, here's what we're proposing, here's the backup information to support it.
Amen.
And just to make it that's the strategy.
But also it should be the same on her. When we say, why can't we play it? It's not, it should be because we can't do it, or I talked and he said, show us. So if they talk to someone and they said they can't do it, it must be in law, in code, somewhere. And that's what she should be showing us, not just.
And I will say this is the only
For the council.
This is what disappointed me a little bit about Ben's response, right? So it kind of felt like a cold, hard, Heisman Trophy no, right? Like, no, you can't have it. And I think it would have been nicer if with some of the questions, it's no, but
But if you
if you do this, or no, but,
there's
you know,
no solution.
you know, like when a student comes up to you and you got the answer wrong, you don't say no. You say, well, no, but if you look at this part right here, you might be able to tweak that and get to where you need to be. I think that's collaborative, right? No, you can't do it. No, there's law against it, and period, stop. Doesn't feel like we have an opportunity to like really dig into it more.
And John, that's exactly what I brought up at the last meeting, where I said, I understand we don't agree, right? We don't agree. So both sides present their facts. This is how the building committee is suggesting you finance it. This is how the finance people, I'm not saying to not listen to them, but at the end of the day, they don't make the decision of whether it goes to the town. It's for vote. So you have to listen to both sides. You have to listen to the arguments that they both say as to whether or not this can be funded. And the town council, the 5 members of the town council, make a decision. It's a vote and go forward. Like, we keep beating this up, but I feel like they have this opinion, and I'm okay with their opinion. I don't agree with it. It sounds like it goes in circles. They don't give how they got this information. To me, they should be saying, this is how we're different than Barrington, not about income, because it doesn't matter about income. You have to fund the schools. And there's not just Barrington. Why would you compare it to Barrington? Go look at some of the other towns that are closer to us and can say, but this is how they did it, or this is how much money they had, so that they're telling us why it's not going to work for us. Instead, it's just a bunch of numbers on a page, and any of us that's not a finance person can't even fathom what this means. So we have to go by their arguments. What are they saying that sells it to us, and what is the building committee people saying? And the 5 people at town council ultimately make the decision. If you choose to support the finance people's recommendation, sure, but the problem is still sitting there. We have schools that need work. So I'm hoping that if the town council doesn't even let it get to the voters, that the town council is ready to put their heads together to figure out how we're going to fix the mold problem and a whole bunch of other issues, and not sweep it back under the rug like every other town council has done previously and said, we don't have enough money for the schools, too bad.
So Amy, I think the strategy has been to try to circle the wagon as tight as possible. So we didn't want to go the way of South Kingstown, where both started getting chiseled apart because some people didn't agree, right? I think that's been the strategy, but I think maybe we need to adjust our strategy. Instead of trying to convince everybody that this is it, just say, this is our position. These are the 5 points we're trying to make. Here's the backup evidence that goes with it. I'm sorry you don't agree with it, but this is it. And the town council can make this decision on whether it goes to the voters or not.
So is it, are there two different plans being put?
No, we're putting one
No,
together.
no.
We put one to
We
them,
put one
and
together.
then
And I would say, guys, the strongest argument for me personally is I can spend $1.5 to $2.5 million a year to maybe fix all of the safe, warm, and dry at every school, not have a single thing different.
It's not gonna look any different.
But it's not gonna fix the safe.
It's
room.
all gonna be
You can look
exactly the
right
same.
around this room,
Yeah.
you can put
But-
Band-Aids on it, some
Yeah.
exposed conduit, and
That's
put
it.
some devices on the wall, you can replace a couple of dirty tiles, but you still don't.
Or I can spend it and really fix the school.
Correct.
And I want to hear from Harold, and our plan is moving forward to make sure that we're consistently slightly increasing our capital budget so that we know we can
Yes.
do it all in one
That-
lump sum
Yeah.
in the next couple of years.
That's our point though, of trying to use our funds strategically, and we talk about this publicly, right, Kathy? We talk about how we're taking, like, for the next 3 years, we're taking $400,000 out of operations for the leases of Chromebooks that we purchase using ESSER funds. We know it's a one-time, but it frees up some money. We're gonna buy vans so we can transport kids, so we don't have to spend $6,000 a month for one student, right? So that frees up operations.
And I'll also tell you, the town can't afford to increase your budget by what you need to increase your capital improvement by. We also can't simply stagnate the town's budget over that same period of time. So if with this bond, you're making it so that it doesn't create this huge onslaught of what we're gonna end up owing,
Right.
that for me makes not just the new building we're gonna have, but maintaining the operation budget for both work. But it doesn't mean I don't understand the other arguments.
But there's one, like, so talking about the pensions, right? So something that'll come up from our unions, like, I don't want to speak for them, but is that I think there was a contract recently, like, so it was public, the police pension's the worst pension in the state. But there was a contract, so we opened up our contracts. We had a meeting with all the unions before your time, but we all agreed that we'd open the contracts. Only the school department fully opened the contracts for both unions and renegotiate because we need to get savings. And so one of the arguments that'll come up though, if we use the pension thing and get it funded, is that I've never seen the contract, but I don't know if they address the pension, right? But I know they got a raise. Maybe that's on the road. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to get into these push and pull in. Like, we've got to find that common ground. But if it goes, we've got all these other pieces. Then we have to say, well, these are the things that we've done. Like I'm saying about using ESSER funds, right? Like, so how, we need to be met halfway. And that's what we're looking
And
for.
I'd like to simplify it a little bit, and I think that's why Fred's question was a good question about what the maintenance cost would be, and not just by year, but also in total. Because if you wanted to simplify it real simple, the bonds cost $89 million, we're getting $8 million of pay-go up front, $2 million of pay-go in the back end, we get a 15% reimbursement, here's our bottom line, $67 million.
Right.
Or we do 2% every year for the same number of years, what's the bottom line number?
94 million.
Right. So, I mean, that simplifies things a lot. I know the spreadsheet complicates it, makes it look different, but I'm just saying, for a simple person,
That's
in
what I'm
the
saying.
same amount of time.
Like, I know everyone's harping on this spreadsheet,
No, I
but
think
like,
it's
I think
really
it's got a lot in
difficult.
it that's way,
I don't,
the whole operations budget in the spreadsheet.
I'd like to suggest that when the finance team meets with Lisa, I'm zeroing in on 3 questions here that were answered that I think would be good to understand better. First one is, question number 2, has to do with existing debt fall-off. Because the CDC's plan is to utilize debt fall-off to help pay for the new lives, right?
Mhm.
And the response to town has to produce a balanced budget, the existing debt wall-up does not get segregated from the total expenditures. I'd like to have an expansion on that and what that means. Okay, because debt wall-up is a key element of the financial plan for this plan. And so the answer that was posed, the question that was posed here, and the response is that the town would not have a balanced budget, so we need to understand that better. The next question is, does the town agree that a one-time 1.99% levy increase in 2022 is sufficient, et cetera? And it says a one-time levy of 1.99 would be insufficient to meet the projected funding obligations to cover all future bond payments. So the question is, what would be sufficient? What would be necessary to cover the bond payments?
I think that was asked tonight too, though.
Yeah.
It was, but see, the problem here is, we're not, he never really answered the bond follow-up.
Yes.
And so if he doesn't answer the bond follow-up, then it can't be 199.
No, I understand, but I mean,
But he
you have
even
to
said
understand
3.35.
why it's recommended that the bond formula not be used, because it says it would result in an unbalanced budget.
What he's saying is that we need to balance the budget
There's no
every year.
balanced budget
Well,
yet.
I'm
How does he know?
just saying, we need to understand this better.
So, yeah, so that's a super simple explanation that I did, like, does that make sense, Dan? Like, why, I don't understand, like, I get that is in your budget because we're currently paying for it, but it's a line item in your budget, so if you just change the title of, bond for,
School bond.
something from the eighties, now something for today.
Right now, without increasing the levy again.
It's school bond payment, it's
School
still
bond
school bond
And
payment.
we might still increase the levy,
Right.
because, yeah, we could.
Well, I think
So you're not gonna give tax money back to the citizens, so the money is going to be there. Now,
So-
what he's saying is you can't guarantee that we're gonna spend it on this bond.
What he's saying,
That's what he's
in
saying.
this
But it's gonna
spreadsheet,
be there.
in this spreadsheet, what he's saying is, in this spreadsheet, that when that went from in 2024, from 5 million to 4 million, that $1 million was put into other lines.
I think with a balanced budget means that if the debt fall, let's say the debt fall is $100, you should have a surplus of $100 in that debt fall. So, but in order to have a balanced budget, what comes in has to go out. That's how you get a balanced budget, all right? But you need that whole $100 in that particular year for the bond. So in other words, when you get the money coming in from debt fall off, is that going to equal, I think it's balance means equal, some expenditures that's going out the door? And I don't think it's going to quite equal it. I think we're gonna need less than what's coming in from the debt fall off to pay for this bond debt that particular year.
Then it will just be, we're putting it to another line, say we're moving it up into 2 line items.
My problem is everything from
Yeah.
2023
Yeah,
on down
yeah.
are all fictional numbers.
Yeah.
It's all fictional.
Having done assumption.
I interpreted that as lack of faith in tax. I interpreted that we'll have say we have $1.5 million, and as town manager, my responsibility is to balance the budget, right? Therefore, if the taxpayers don't support, we're gonna need to potentially use that 1.5 million to balance the budget. That's how I interpret that.
But if the towns are already saying, but I want that money to go towards this bond I voted for, then why aren't we saying that that money is like stamped and approved for months?
So what we have to do is find out how they.
Can you write it up in the legislation for the bond, saying, hey, your
That's
debt
what we don't know.
allocated to this?
Well, the town council, when approval, they could make that,
It's,
say,
and I,
the existing debt services are gonna stay on our budget for the repayment of this loan, are gonna stay on the book in the same amount to cover this.
You'd have to ask the solicitor if there's a way to write a resolution.
and that's, I know, because
Luke's been doing it.
The next town council can change it with another resolution.
I mean,
But don't we, but
They want
go
to,
back to
but
the
they're still gonna have to
same
come up with a resolution.
question?
but yeah, we've also, so in my mind, even to not have to get so convoluted, once we approve the bonds, you have to pay for it.
Correct.
So whatever is sitting there and outstanding, and I think it's totally what you were saying, whatever's in the, if and some miracle has happened and we're overfunded. That is a miracle.
If you give up your pay, if you give up your pay, you know, it would be okay.
I give as much, I get my hair cut. I will say, I think it is a logical conclusion to say, once this bond is approved, the debt is part of our budget. And we can use any part, same way we don't have it all broken out here. Like we didn't break out capital improvements, and we don't have broken out, like you guys said, the police department loan, and, you know, we know what we owe to all of them, the back end is on that. Like right now, we're paying off a school and a police department and a senior center, and it's all in there. And when you're done paying it off, the money's still there. And you can either immediately appropriate it to things within your budget that require it, and then you put your levy on. And then hopefully what you want to do is have it be a smaller levy, because you're not giving the money back to the taxpayer.
There's no way
Well,
that's
what you're saying is, this bond fell off, we're using it to pay something that's already part of our budget, and now we're putting the levy on that we require.
And if I remember correctly, it does not impact the bond rate.
No, it
No.
doesn't. It's really more what we can borrow. And my other thing is, beyond the ESSER funds, this year, the town is getting a once in a lifetime influx of money. Is it as much money as we need? No, but it's here. And
You do a nice shot, yeah.
it's additional financing. So, I mean, there are reasons to take up. I'm being devil's advocate here. Like, you need a red team before we get out there in front of the whole town. Like, I approve this project. I think it's a great project. I think it's going to be great for our town. But I don't fault people who are going to say, I don't think this is the most important capital improvement project for our town enough. Like, so I think, Joe, I hope his mom's okay, because I really think he speaks very well on the meeting, which is huge. You guys speak great towards, you know, this is what we automatically add in our industry. For projects, you're not coming from, you're also making assumptions, but based on, like, she's making assumptions based on her expertise. You guys make some assumptions based on your expertise, and projects you've done, and how we can help with, you know, where we find the shortfalls.
Well, we will just try to make it as possible, like 2 more days to try.
Right, so I'll see if we can do it either
Hey, if you could do
tomorrow.
Friday morning,
What?
Friday morning, I have Friday off, but I. have
Friday
plans-
morning? All right, so we have a motion for Friday morning.
See if she's available.
Well, I mean, I think she's just saying, like, the try.
Can I ask, well, after this meeting's over, then the finance team come together, please, please see if we can find 3 times so that we can have at least 3 times that we can give her.
I'm
Please.
sorry, what did you say?
After this meeting's over,
Tonight,
we'll find 3 times that everybody can meet, and then we'll send that over to her and see which one works for her.
oh, I see what you mean, right?
Yep.
What's the rest of the agenda for the night? Is there anything else?
I think we talked about
The school building committee presentation, I think that's what we've been doing. Public comment, I'm not sure if there's anyone on the Zoom call.
Oh, so are you going to be,
Scheduling this?
presenting on Monday evening?
It's the 22nd, right?
We should really talk about that, right? So the intent, so if it's gonna be a joint meeting, is it the expectation that we walk in to the council and we just start with our, here is why we think you should vote for this project? Or is it a series of questions for the building?
I think the purpose of this meeting tonight was for this group to decide how you were going to do that. You know, so to answer your question, we're going to start our executive session at 6. We're going to have a short executive session at 6:30. At 6:30, we're going to start with a public session, and our longer executive session will push to the end of the meeting so that you will not be coming on so late.
What time do you think they'll be going on? If I have to post it, I don't want to post it at 6:30 if we're not going to get on until.
Probably be safe around 7:30. I would be safe at 7.
7? Okay.
So we're going to be discussing an overview of COVID funds
coming in and setting the baseline. I think Luke has a valid point that somehow it became everybody against Luke, and like as though this was his big project. So I don't mind coming in and setting the baseline. I do think it should maybe start out with some type of a testimonial. Joe would be great based on like what he did, what he had or whatever he can do. I mean, I really do think we really do need to start identifying the need and making sure everybody has a handle on that. It's huge before you start getting into a whole battle about being able to do it.
But you also supposed to be talking about the judges before, remember?
We have that, we've already done that.
Phil's gonna be doing it.
Yeah, we've done
How
that.
long is that going to take, do you think?
Maybe 10 minutes. But, you know, then there's opportunity for questions, so.
May I suggest, as we get up to speed, we identify our regular job of what we do, so that they understand the incredible team that's here. Instead of just, okay, you're a citizen, you're an architect. This is really important. You're a civil engineer. You're a civil engineer. So they need to understand us as people, as residents of town, as well as recognizing the need for this to happen.
And to piggyback off that, Lee, I think you're on the right path. I think we should also make sure that we do a presentation that isn't just a financial presentation, but maybe we speak about the current status of the building, and then we start talking about the academic improvements.
Yes.
And what it brings to the school community and to the community at large. And then maybe people from the industry can talk about, you know, the kinds of projects that are happening throughout the state and how they impact other communities. And like get our way to finances, but not necessarily jump right into it. Because I think the meat and potatoes of this is really more than just, you know, can we afford to build a school? I think it's what's the impact of that school on the community and the students?
What happens to the learning outcome?
Monday, to post it tomorrow. Okay.
So maybe we can divide it up a little bit.
So we start out with SBC introduction. We'll let Joe kind of roll right into the need. We'll let Phil kind of roll into the Jacobs report and how what we are proposing here kind of addresses all of those pieces. The next step should be RIDE, to your point, somebody to fill in the gap on RIDE, the requirement, not that they're going to be there, but you know, just the understanding of the process, the reimbursement, the whole educational component, and that kind of piggyback right off of Phil's info. And then we get to, what, oh, RIDE. So RIDE kind of encompasses,
It's a finance too.
yeah, finances the education, it finances the reimbursement, it,
Do we put academic impact in there someplace?
academic impact, I said education, but that's probably the appropriate. So the academic impact will come from their reimbursement. I do think it's key to tie into communities that are taking advantage. To your point, we are already paying for 24 other communities to get their school, other communities. And again, I don't know if we want to, we don't have to talk about it, but I wouldn't mind just one of the numbers if we did like the inflation 3.5%. I can get some info on square footage and all of that to balance it. If somehow it comes up that, you know, they're not
Even the
balanced.
increase over if we waited
Yeah,
a certain amount of time.
well, to escalate, we forgot into Barrington only paid this and blah, blah, blah. Like, first of all, like, you know, why, like, we don't have to compare ourselves to Barrington, like, they're Barrington, so they deserve a better school than us. That sounds ridiculous as a statement. So, like,
Actually,
Barrington,
that's just normal statement. But I would have it for back pocket information.
well, no, I don't think we need to address it, but I do want to kind of take those numbers, I can escalate them to today's dollars and all that kind of stuff. So if it comes up that this happened in Barrington, I can get the info on their actual square footage, and if that was 3 years ago, they completed that, if we were to escalate
What
that.
that project cost today.
And Alita, didn't they, like, whatever they spent, let's say it was 60 million or whatever, I think her point was being that it was less than what
Yeah, less
we're
than
doing, but didn't all that money go into their middle school? It didn't go to their other schools?
It went all,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, it
and our
only to middle school.
and our middle school's at, I think 72.
Right,
is
so
the
this
portion that's
this
middle
is
school.
going to our middle school, the high school, and 5 elementary schools.
Yeah,
So it's going to 7 schools.
I'll make sure I
Scientific
pluck out the
versus-
actual amount,
yeah.
that's the middle
About
school.
middle school is actually bigger.
Yeah, square footage wise, it's bigger, and then,
Third.
and then, yeah, population wise, it's bigger, a lot of things where to just say,
Yeah.
you know, Barrington didn't do that, okay, good for them. So, I'll just intake that comes up in conversation. When we start talking about the other people, just kind of mention the other communities that taking advantage, whatever. And I don't, like I said, I'm gonna start as a comparison, and then I think from there, we do have to go to, finance committee, who's gonna speak for finance?
So is Luke gonna be here for that or not?
Yeah, that's,
I think he understands it pretty well, he's pretty
I
eloquent
was
about it.
thinking he was just gonna jump to the right, when we got to the right section after Joe and Phil and move for.
I think we have to end with something that, Don was talking about, which is, you know, you don't wanna end up with finances, because then that's all everybody's thinking about, but.
Oh, no,
the impact-
we go somewhere after finances, but we have to, it has to be a bullet, right? So, and what's the last bullet after finance? What makes, because we got, this is gonna be our agenda.
What about if we put how we cannot, like, our position is we can't afford not to do this, but I don't know how, I don't,
I love
What does
John's
that mean?
message
Yeah,
about the
it's
win.
Tom's
Yeah.
message.
We need a win.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you can call it out. You're passionate.
Or a-
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, not for nothing, but you, like, you
Yeah.
can take it home.
Yeah, he's
because-
much more elegant than me.
Okay.
You're,
So,
I
you're
would say
delicate?
though, Amy, the fact that
She's a resident.
you're, the fact that you were the principal of, the
Western.
elementary school of Western, and you're supporting this project. You're a very well loved and admired principal. And I do think that your support of this project is important, and it doesn't have to be part of the agenda, but I think, you know, you should make clear, you know, I wish we could fix every school, but as a committee, I agree, you know, as part of the committee, I agree.
Yeah. well, we'll chat about how it'll round out, whether,
Yeah, we can work on
we can figure that out.
So,
And again, even the finance portion, right, to your point, we don't want to take and try to tackle a spreadsheet.
Yes,
We really just want to
No.
summarize and say, you know, we've reviewed between the debt falling off and the annual obligation for
It'd be
maintenance
really
that,
quick.
that comes, boom, 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 there is a way to reallocate and shift funds.
And we've worked with the town and this is what we've come up with.
Yeah, like there's a way to do this.
But we have to do some homework on those 4 or
Yes.
5 items. Call people to state and find out exactly what.
I agree.
down.
And I think we have to get to some finance people at the schools that have been built and say, what's your plan? How to make it happen? And not like in East Providence where a lot of it was paid for by the state, but,
Right.
you know,
Next time, call somebody and ask them
Yeah,
like how
no,
they
we
manage.
can. And, well, Cumberland, I spoke to the finance person in Cumberland way back when I was just trying to get, some numbers on what they paid for stage 2 architect costs. He was actually very forthcoming with information on the whole process.
and I think Cumberland, we can realistically read ourselves to.
Similar size,
Very
similar,
similar, very similar. Yeah.
And I think the most important part is having the town bond advisor or Karen, I think her name is, to be able to weigh in on some of these legal matters that we're not so sure about. Because I think she's the one that can really answer these questions.
And has anybody had any of those initial conversations?
She works for the, it's really gonna come from the
She works for the
town,
town,
so we can't really ask her because she works for them, so that would, you know, that's the person that Ben or Lisa could ask those questions, so.
And in the end, is,
What's Karen's last name? Karen,
I can't remember off the top of my head.
she's the bond counsel,
Brown Council,
but she's very good. She, the time when the town voted for, the taxpayers voted for the school budget, but they didn't vote for the town budget. Then they did a special meeting, and then she was there discussing what would happen, and, you know, before they went back out for the vote again. She's very articulate, very good.
Wouldn't it be so great to get them on like the team meeting so that somebody from this finance committee can be on that call when they're talking to the bond council? I just don't feel like they're asking them the questions
I think the finance team actually has to ask that question, or group within the building committee has to ask that question. They can be there with us, but we have to ask that question because we're not sure what the answer is. And we just want verification of that answer.
I think the end of the presentation should be a call to action. In other words, what do you want?
Mhm.
Support the bond.
Right.
The project that is being presented, and support the financial plan that we are recommended. I mean, whatever your call to action is, you should end with a call to action. I just pulled up a couple emails. I did exchange emails from a couple council members. This is what they said. I'm interested in to see what the other financing plans are for municipalities that have engaged in these bonds. Our other towns having to rely on a certain levy amount of money each year for the life of the bond to make bond payments. So that's one question someone asked. Another question is, interested in the interest-only calculation. I think this calculation did not include interest-only calculation, that we have to pay the interest the first 2 years. Is that correct, Carol?
It does.
Huh?
It does include the interest.
Okay, and review of comparable bonding scenarios in other towns. And those are just the two things that were mentioned.
No, it does include the interest.
I'll send an email out to Sam and try to see what I can get from Eric and the state board for the queue so that
That would be excellent,
they'll be able to gather that.
excellent.
Dr. Dixon, can you, I guess I'll reach out tomorrow, but I just want to see how the town's going to post this agenda item so that when I post the joint meeting, it's a similar item. Did you guys have your meeting tomorrow? Or did you do it already?
Joanne sent me the draft agenda today so that I could look at it and I could post it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'll be happy to show it to you before you leave.
Okay.
Can you pull out that?
Just post that item and email it to me, because then I'll post it tomorrow morning for 7 o'clock. Monday night at the town council chambers.
Luke?
I'm gonna forward it to you, Craig.
Yeah.
I'm gonna forward it to you, the draft agenda.
Okay.
This does not mean that it won't.
No, I get it. I just need to,
It's coming now.
I just want to post it tomorrow, so that's fine. I'll draft it all, and then once I get confirmation, I'll post it.
And you also started emails with Ben, and like about Karen. You guys want her at the meeting?
We could even zoom in with her. I think she's the bond counsel. She'll be able to, I think, probably give those answers that we're looking for. I
Are you
know.
looking for her to be at the meeting now, or were you looking to just have a conversation?
No, I think
If we could have it at the same time we're having the
Finance
meeting,
meeting, yeah.
I think it's fine. If we could have it in advance, it'd also be great, but I think that we're working with a very short fuse at this point, that we have to get on a short timeline.
Not a short.
Timeline.
No one's ready to go. We're good.
I don't need.
I'll let you take me out to dinner. What? I'll let you take me out to dinner.
I owe you.
And then this call to action, that's gonna be down in Amy, that's gonna be probably a close up.
Yeah, we can figure that out.
What are the outfits we're wearing?
We'll coordinate.
Good, yeah.
We'll go forward.
I was gonna say, you look great. But we already,
I get it.
oversized.
Yeah.
Do the thing where you touch faces for people who are on Zoom.
Craig, it doesn't look like she's posted it.
But it has to be.
I understand that.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. I want to, you know that, and you're gonna do it tomorrow, so,
We told her about it,
yeah, that's okay.
She may have just missed it.
So,
So I'll send her that, when I get home tonight.
so it's a joint meeting between the school building committee and the town council.
Yeah.
Lee, is there anything else on that list that everyone can help us with?
Um,
There, would be sort of, let's go next. idea to reach out to
I
them.
don't think, you wanna know what? I think it would be nice to have their input during the portion where we have the ride
They're slated, they're slated to go
in the
in.
state. Yeah, so
They're
I'll
slated to go in.
talk to them. I'll give,
22nd, they'll be there?
They'll be there the 22nd.
yeah, so
Good.
maybe I'll find out. So maybe what I'll do is I'll kind of type up this, to send it out to this group and say, hey, guys, here's what we kind of walked off as our agenda. And then I'll put names next to pieces. And then, I'll talk to Sam. I'll send this out tomorrow.
Sam has a whole agenda that he's ready for the 22nd.
His whole agenda?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
just tell me.
I have it, I can send it down.
Oh, then
I have it, yeah.
And then we could just see maybe what we might want him to cover a couple pieces in here and then I'll take it off the box.
Correct.
All right, perfect. Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask him to reach out. I'm gonna ask him about other towns' financial plans and bonding scenarios, like what they did and how consistent their levy was or whatever they did over time. And then, what the hell did I write, look at that? I just wrote reach out to Cumberland, and I don't know why.
That's what the financing, how they did the financing.
Oh, okay, so that's, okay,
Is there comparable?
and,
Are they doing a high school?
I think it's a high school, and then kind of similar, and then there's.
But that $80 million project.
Yeah, and they're touching a couple elementary schools as well, so it's kind of similar.
How much?
I thought it was 80 million.
I
I think Cumberland.
thought I heard it.
I was just saying, we would better get one that's fast.
Honestly, I think it's a pass. I'm not worried about the bond. Oddly enough.
If it gets fast from the
Westfield and Operate.
Okay.
And it's not,
the levy or
Yeah, that's right.
I don't see that on their agenda.
correct?
Like,
Yeah. What if you ask Joe to put ours in as well? What if you ask Joanne to put it?
No, I'll do it. She can do it.
Oh, Darren is the Darren, yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah.
I could have.
Like, if we don't do it now, let's work with the cost and stuff.
What that project was like.
Yeah, but I'll do that, because I have like, I just have a sheet, like, right now I'm doing this for.
I deserve a raise.
That's the other thing, that's why I wanted to ask the question, and Lisa's opinion, like, it can't be never, when do you think we could afford to do it? But she didn't give us like a year, like, is it never, ever?
And not to belabor that point, but to kind of think there might be another opportunity in 5 years, we could wait and see what happens. I don't really feel like that's an option. And you know, we don't know what's gonna happen. We know what's happening now.
Are you willing to wait and see what happens to school in 5 years? Like,
Well,
You've been-
that's a huge, there's two opposite scenarios. We have this project, we know now, we have access to additional funding for, and if we go forward with this levy, we think it's feasible with everything we have currently. And in 5 years, we get this $20,000 project that we have to do. We don't go forward now. In 2 years, we get this $20,000 project that we've got to do. And then we still are told this is $20,000 cheaper. We could have done, we wouldn't do the school now, but we still.
Yeah, that's.
Like, that's what I'm saying is, we have something now. That's
It's a no versus a no.
solid project that needs to be done. And I think that's where you really have to keep coming back to is, no one questions this.
Nobody.
And also reaching out that, okay, the school understands that the town can't do the entire capital improvement or maintenance improvement situation, and that they don't have it. Like, these two things are coming together. And so this will help us ease into being able to take care of those capital expenses within the budget we have.
Hey, you made me think of something. Do you
Sorry.
think it's a good idea, instead of just Joe, maybe we could get some teachers?
I'd like to get the new, this vice principal's initial reaction.
Like, I think sometimes you get the voice of the people in the trenches, it sounds a little bit harder. It's not just Joe on the building
I
committee,
think
but it's.
so, I think the power, and they've asked for it, Kim was very clear, is people need to reach out to the council members. You know, we saw, like, you know, without getting into too much, I saw that when we were going for a contract, people reaching out made a difference.
I got so many phone calls.
Yeah.
From SRP.
Yeah,
And
but it did make a difference, right? I mean,
it totally, so, I don't know that it made a difference, but it was an important,
yeah,
it helped. It was a touch point.
yeah, yeah.
And it helps make it real for everybody too, like the people you're gonna have.
Well, I wanna make it real.
And those, you know, they can be part of the actual presentation, part of public comment, you know.
I think that'd be a good piece of the finances too to throw in. And when you talk about the, increase, Harold, you talk about that, we do, if we dumb it down to, you know, numbers, maybe we've got one of those boards and just, you know, don't be scared by saying 4% every year. That's, you know,
Right.
a Netflix, if it keeps going up, it's gonna be less than Netflix too, when it just goes up $5 every month. But like, you know what I mean, I think that somehow in the tone of the finance, like, and again, if you have to sell it to your constituents, you can walk in and say that, and for them to hear the numbers and know that, that might be.
You mean the difference between the 3.46 versus the 1.99, or?
Yeah, no, just overall, when you're talking about whatever the percent is, if you get stuck on 4% a year or whatever it is, don't get stuck on here, your taxes are gonna go up by 4%. It is, you know, the average home owner is gonna pay for this project.
Yeah, I've got that. I've got
Yeah,
that.
so just like 3 blurbs, right?
Yeah.
I think that one's a nice blurb to have in.
So it's obvious that Parents of Coventry website, like, things explode really quickly on that, right? We just saw that this week. But Kim, I know you're on it because you post what happens. Do you think it makes sense for us to put something on there that just says, you know, going to talk about the possibilities of fixing our schools and a new middle school? Are we going to be able to get it on the ballot? Like, shoot it out there every day. I know we're going to get some negative, and maybe we shouldn't
I
then.
will say that I posted about this project, and most of what was on my post, and that's not true of all the council members, was, yeah, of course you need a school. Like,
I think people, if they can get on to and watch from their living room and get some ideas about it, and we have an opportunity to sell it, because people do watch what happens on that site, there's no doubt about it.
and just, if we don't have to talk about annual increases, then answer the question.
All right, so do we technically need to vote to schedule the
Yes,
meeting
yes.
for next Monday
Yep.
at 7 PM?
Yes.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposition? Perfect. Anything else?
Motion to
Yeah,
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
It's definitely a town council on Monday.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Woo!
The ayes have it.
Over short, you know,
Harold, could
I'm
you
here.
please-
H1